Hi, I'm Goldmaster. Today's video is showing you how to scan and archive CDs. It's including the outside, but also the discs themselves, the back and the package. Why exactly scan CDs? Well, the main reason being is because not every release is available for streaming. Take for example Liam Bushwhacker's early stuff, for example, is not actually on Spotify, and if you browse their discography, you won't actually find either of these albums, like Low Life or Feels Closer, for example. And of course, also many CDs often have different variations, sometimes even as small as a track listing, or even just simply different decor. And by scanning and archiving means that you actually help to preserve these releases for future generations to appreciate. While there are plenty of guides out there for how to actually rip a CD, the thing is that it doesn't always encompass about scanning the actual content. So in today's video, I'll be showing you how to actually scan these and then upload them onto Musicbrainz in full resolution. What software is it you'll need? Well, there's two options really. We've got Gimp and we've also got Photoshop. Now, in the context of me doing this video, I'm going to be sticking with Gimp for a number of reasons. One is that essentially it's much more accessible and because it's free. We'll be sticking with Gimp because it's free under the GNU license. So this means that you're able to much more easily distribute, sort and distribute a copy and read the source code or modify it if you want to. And generally found that Gimp has significantly improved in the last 2 years. When I tried Gimp a few years when I first started archiving and scanning CDs, and I was trying to transfer wirelessly from the printer, it just simply couldn't transfer. It would just crash and just with this garbled error message. But now Gimp has seemed to have came a long way and has worked a lot better with bug fixes. There are some things it was able to do much more easily that Photoshop just didn't have. And finally, Gimp is available on Mac, Windows or Linux. So really, this workflow will cater to anyone's needs. Gimp can be available to download from the website or by searching Gimp in wherever you get your apps from. What actually is involved in scanning the disc? Well, the first thing we want to do is actually inspect the disc. Many CDs, such as this Liam Bushwhacker I shown earlier, will come in different designs. And generally the way I scan is by doing the back like here, and in the front or along, take the disc out and scan that, including the back as well and the tray. And then after that, I then generally would then put them into individual files. So for example, if you've got a multiple disc album, such as this biggest trance albums here, which has multiple discs inside, generally I'd always go through and scan these, as well as the booklet as well, as we can see. Just put that back in. And then again, it'll have to be in case of numbering the discs as disc 1 and disc 2. So I'll be showing you the workflow on the computer side. But generally you want to inspect and look at your discs, your box set first, and actually before actually archiving any of these CDs, the scans, that you actually archive the actual CD, the music on the disc first before doing any of this, simply because if you scratch the disc slightly or there's any speck of dust, it can cause issues later when you actually come to want to listen to it. But generally we want to look at the actual, inspect the packaging itself. So I've got this and TriStar disc here. We've got like the inside, we've got our disc. Now, so we've got our inside here. Now generally I would not worry too much about things like there's a little crack here. I don't do any color correction or editing in the color sense. I just scan the disc itself because of the fact that generally when you color correct, you end up changing what the disc looks like, and so I don't really sort of believe in trying to do that. So we'll show you how to do this on the computer on the software side next.
To get started, open a web browser and type in gimp.org. Then click download. Now I've got different options for downloading. You've got it on Microsoft Store if you want, or download directly. As saying, you can get on Linux, Mac OS, Windows. So what you need to do is simply just click download. That's what I'm just going to do, and I'll just let it run. And if Gimp does help you, I would strongly advise that you try and help donate to support the project. And if there's other ways as well that you can contribute back. They have got some documentation, but Gimp is good and useful for basic photo editing. With Gimp now installed, it's time to get some scanning done. So turn on your scanner, or all-in-one in this case. And with that said, we just need to lift the lid. Now, I always check the working area of the scanner itself. You want to make sure there's no dust or dirt. There's a little bit of dirt along the bottom, don't worry. And all I need to do is just put the packaging on the scanner itself, and we'll try and line this up to the edge like so. What I then usually do is move it away a tad just so that we don't get any cropping. You notice it flexes up quite a bit, but when we bring the lid down over the top, we should be able to get a very good scan. So we'll head back to the comp, and let's get the scanning done. So with the CD cover now loaded in the scanner, we just need to go to File, Create, Scanner Camera, and then you'll see the source here that will show up. Now it's just the only one. I'm just going to click Select. Now what I usually do is I just click the custom settings and adjust the quality of the picture. By default on this Canon all-in-one I've got, it decides to put it at 150. Now what I can sometimes do is type in 1200, and then if you click OK, you'll get the message saying about an invalid value for resolution, and it's just being selected up to the nearest valid value. And the highest one is 600 dpi that the scanner can scan at, which is absolutely fine. If you can get 1200, that's even better. Just click OK. And then what I then do is click the preview, because we want to see how the scan is going to come out. So just wait on the scanner to start up. Now as you can see, this is very much a little bit of a badly put in place. However, it's not too bad in the sense of how it is. We can still get this detail, and this is why I was saying about don't put it all the way at the edge, but it's still acceptable. If it's rotated like this, we can still get a decent scan and crop. So generally I'm quite happy with that. I'm just going to click scan. We'll let it scan, and it's now transferring the data across from the scanner. This can take a little bit of time, so just be patient. At this point, it may look like nothing is happening. However, near to the bottom, we can now see it's actually transferring the data saved that's on the computer to load in Gimp. Okay, with the scan now complete, we can obviously see for starters that it's a little bit wonky. Now, I always use the grid bit here, which we can activate by dragging down from the top. And what I usually do is try, and this is where you have to be able to eyeball as best as you can, and it will take some trial and error to get right. What I'm trying to then do is get the guides to line up exactly where I want. And if I do need to move them, you can always just use the move arrow. And then for your keyboard, we can just hold down control and just zoom in. And as you can see, it's not 100% correct, or more to the point. You can still see there's a little bit of sort of tear, I guess, edge damage, wear and tear on the side here, but that is perfectly normal. I'm generally looking to get the line as close as I can. I don't recommend anyone to use like a cut, to go and use a fill option to physically go around and cut out the whole thing that way, because it just sometimes creates anomalies. But what I'm trying to generally do is get this as close as I can edge as close as I can. And like I've said, this is going to be trial and error, and it can take some time to do. And if we look at the side here, we can obviously see that it's not quite straightened up, but that's okay, we can sort this out. So with that now as close as I can, so to rotate we can hold down the shift and then R, and essentially I want to make sure to select where the guides intersect. So to activate rotating, all I need to do is to use the shift R option, and by default it puts the rotate option in the center. Now this guide bit here I can move and it will just jump and lock onto the very top left, which is where the guides are intersecting. And then with that then said, we can then just rotate around, and as you can see we're now getting this to rotate on the marker. Now again, this is eyeballing. It's going to take a little bit of time to eyeball, but generally you want this to be as close as you can, which again, eyeballing it as much as you possibly can down the bottom, not quite there. And again, if I move it up, you'll then notice that something else will shift, and that is perfectly okay, because this is the physical that you're scanning into digital, where not everything is crystal clear or 100% always going to be 100% accurate. So if I just click to move off, you can see now it's started seeing the rotate, which should only take a few moments. But this is pretty much as close I'm going to get. I might just move this guide down and say I'm literally now into improvise. This bit is not, I haven't scripted or worked out what I'm going to say. I'm just talking like I'm normally talking. So with that now relatively scanned quite nicely, this is close I think I'm going to get. You can see I've got a little bit of a gap in the top left here, but that's again just due to wear and tear the actual cover. I'm then going to bring out the next guide, which I can just do again by simply dragging in from the left and then moving along. Now here we can see we're just a tad blurred, but that's okay. See, it's just a tad a little bit blurred, and this is where sometimes it can be a little bit challenging to see where we get the guides in. But because we've got a nice sharp, pretty sharp edge here, I'm going to use this to try and work out where the edge should be. Again, you can see some of this is just shadow from earlier, and that's again pretty much okay. So we could just see that it sort of ends about here. In fact, I could take it, dial it in a little bit more. You can see it just goes in a bit to the edge there. And we've got a little tiny bit of bleed as well, which is also interesting. So again, drag down from the final bit. It's a drag from the top, drag all the way down. When it comes to rotating, you're better off trying to rotate on the edge, on the long bit if you can, because that's going to give you a much more straightened eyeball. And now we can see we've got a crop, a decent area that I can now work in and crop. Again, some bits are a little bit due to wear and tear. So we see we've got a little bit of white along the bottom left here. Now if I look, say top left, you can see that I'm pretty much right up to the border. Because if I had loads of white space top left and then loads of white space sort of along the bottom, then it probably means that I haven't rotated. If I had I haven't rotated it as best as I could. But that's pretty much as close as I'm going to get. It's not, again, it's not always going to be 100% accurate, and that is totally fine. The point is you're trying to preserve the info, the design and stuff like that on the back. So with that now said, I'm going to then use the rectangle select, which will now select the entire bit. The nice bit is it will snap to the edge that I want. So I'm just going to drag down to the bottom and it just jumps and locks into place. You can see it now drags across. It's nice and locks in. So with that now said, I'm then going to go to the edit. I'm going to go copy. Don't go cut or copy visible. You just want to go copy. After that, just go file, just like before, create, and then select from clipboard. And this will now paste what I've selected straight into a new window. After that, we can now start working on cutting up. Now, some people will just export the picture as is, but generally I always export, say, the back and then the spine and then the cover. Use the guide so I can drag down from the top to get the start marking of where the spine is. And as before, you do get a little bit of bleed. As you can see, I'm way off here. So just select the move, and then we'll just move this down. We're just trying to get this as accurate as close as you can. It's all about eyeballing it as much as you can, because it's never going to be 100% accurate, but it's as best you're going to get. So with those now selected, now use the crop option, and as you can see, it now jumps right to the edge. Now just be very careful of doing the cropping option, because you don't want to discard any of the edits, so the bit that you're editing. So just use the crop option, drag all the way down, and you can see now it now selects the bit that we want. Now I'm just going to hit enter to crop. With that now said, I'm going to go file and then export. Now we're going to select save it. Really, you can save it wherever you want, it's entirely up to you. I generally just put them in the desktop, because that way by putting them on the desktop it's just easy to access. But I'm going to make a new folder, and I'm just going to call it and I always call it scans. Just click create, and inside because this is actually the back that I've scanned, I'm simply going to just call it back, and then leave it as PNG, because PNG is the better file type. It's a looseless file. You don't want to compress or make any actual edits to the images, because when you upload them onto Musicbrainz, they will be in full quality, and that's what we want to preserve. And I'm just going to click export and then let it save. Now it'll come up this window. I generally just leave it as, because it's generally absolutely fine. So I'm just going to again just click export, and then you just got to leave it to run to export, because these are relatively large files, they're PNGs. So now with that done, we then just need to undo the cropping that we just did, and we can now work on doing the spine. So just like before, I select the crop option, and the nice thing about crop is it will jump to where the bit where you want it to go to, and we can see we're not quite up to the edge, but that's okay. So that's it now selected there. Just do the same on this side, and as you can see, it sticks it to the filters. And again, just press enter, and then go file, export. We want to go export as, and then the file name, we're going to call it spine, and then just click export. Make sure you don't accidentally overwrite the files that you've just exported, and then just click export again, and now we can see it's exported as spine. Control Z to undo, and the final bit will be to do the actual cover itself. So again, with the crop option selected, you just now want to select the cover. So just scroll all the way down. If I get to the bottom, that would help. Go as far to the left as we can. And then again, press enter, file, export as, and then file name as cover. click export, and then export again. The actual folder itself, you'll notice that we've got the back, the cover. May need to refresh. If we double click on the back one, you'll notice that we would then need to rotate to get it in the right order. You can just rotate normally and move along, and then again rotate, which I think was that way. And then for the spine, you could we'll need to rotate. You could leave it as that, and then that's simply that. You've then just done the first set of images. So next up, I'll show you how to do the inside. So if the outside now scanned on here, it's now time to tackle the inside, which would be the inside cover and the disc tray. So generally with the disc itself, you want to put somewhere safe that you can. So what I'll now do is just simply turn the cover over, and as we just did before, just turn it over. So put it up to the edge like so, but I want to then just move it a little bit further along, just to about to here, and then just close the flap down, and then we'll just hit scan on the computer. Just like before, I'm just going to go File, Create, and then select Scanner Camera, select the source, and just go Custom Settings. I always still try and type in 1200, click OK, and then OK, and then have to click OK again. Click on Preview and wait for the scanner to start up. Now this is looking a little bit more straighter, and I will now just extend these blocks to be a little bit further out, just to give us some more cropping and rotation space if we need to, but that's looking decent. I'm just going to hit scan, and we'll now wait for it to transfer across. And just like before, going to now use the guides, drag down from the top and drag as close as you can, drag from the left and in. Let's see. So one issue with scanning CD trays, as you can see, is that we've got the shine of the plastic shine being reflected. Sometimes it can be a bit of a challenge to work out what part is the cover and what part is just reflection. So what I usually do is, usually it's the most shiniest parts that would be the CD case. The bit on the left here is just the reflection, it's just a shadow caused by the scanning, but we can now see that we just need to rotate in a little bit. We're never going to get this 100% accurate unless you have the blueprints, design files. And we can see there's a little bit of shadow of white space on the top, just as how in the bottom left here we can see we're just a bit over the guide. So that means we just need to rotate a tiny bit anti-clockwise. So Shift and R will bring up the rotate, and then I will just position the rotate icon onto the guides, and of course it snaps to the guides. If I just scroll down, I'll just rotate and move it just to the outside bit. Just have a quick check up and see how it's, I think that's about there. So I'm then just going to click the move, which then invokes the rotating tool. And now, just like before, I'll just drag down the top guide to then bring it to horizontal. That's looking very, very good. Move across. A little bit of bleed here, but it's not anything major. we need to rotate again a second time, feel free to do so. So you'll notice that we've got some parts where it looks like it sort of bleeds over a bit, like here. That's also partly the way the cardboard is put together when the packaging is being made. And there's some bleeding here. We can see some blurriness and a bit of bleed. That's perfectly normal. There's not anything major. Some parts of it is probably shadow. So the reason for part of this showing as being a bit over is because the tray is thicker than the card. So it's sloping up to the card. And this is what's producing the look of where it's further away, because it slopes up. So this would be flat to the scan of the tray, and then this bit sort of gradually folds down. So this bottom bit is on the tray, but then the top part here is just up in the air by a couple of mils because of the thickness of the tray, and that's why we have this weird look of the inside cover being slightly outside. With the guides now put down for the top and bottom, it's now time to start cropping. So what I'm then going to use is the crop tool, used by Shift and C, and then just select the area, and fortunately the crop outline snaps to the guides, and we'll just scroll all the way down. Now it's now done, we can then just start working on going copy. Just go File, Copy, then go File, Create from Clipboard, inside part here. But then we've also got, there's no spine inside because it's just a blank set of cards. So usually I just select the halfway point because there's no text or anything on the inside bit. It's just simply a white piece of card, just a blank white piece of card. So I'll just eyeball this as much as I can between the tray bit, the tray and the inside cover. So once I'm happy with that, which I am, I'm just going to use the crop option and then bring it out to the side and then all the way up to the top, and then top, and then just bring all the way down to the halfway point, press enter. So now I'm happy with that. I'm going to go File and then Export, and now I will just call it Tray, click Export, wait for it to come up with the options, and then just click Export, let it run and export. With the tray now exported, I'll just go Control Z to undo, and then just like before, use the crop option and then select up to the guide all the way down. Just keep going down sometimes, and just press enter, and we want to go export as. Don't go export to tray because you'll overwrite the file, just go export as, and we'll just call this inside. Everyone has their preference for names, but the guides on the Music Hoarder wiki page give you an idea of what to name each part. Just click export and then export again, let it run. So I've got our original back here, which looks perfectly fine, and then our cover. The inside bit, just like before, just needs to be rotated. Move along, got our spine. Tray, yet again, needs to be rotated. And as you can see, we've got the inside bit here, which then links up perfectly fine next to here. Alright, so the final part to then do is the actual disc medium itself. So what I'll try and do is place it down flat as I can. Let's say place it down on the bed, and then all I just need to do is just close cover. This is going to be quite easy, relatively easy to do, because there's no gap in, the lid's not lifted up or anything like that. So I'll jump back to the computer and get this disc scanned both the front and back. Okay, so just like last time, we're going to actually scan the disc itself. Just need to go to File, Create, and then Camera. We'll just wait for it to start up, and then select, and then just like before, we're going to go Custom Settings. Still going to try type 1200 in. Just click OK. Let's click OK again. Now I'll just click Preview just to wait for the scanner to load up. Okay, so just like last time, I'm just going to make the scanning area just a tad bigger. And finally, just hit Scan. We'll now wait for the scan to complete, and then we can start editing. Alright, with our disc now showing up, it's time to actually start cropping. We're going to be using the ellipse select tool, and we'll make sure that the expand from center and fixed aspect ratio is selected. For size, we'll set this at 2845 by 2845, and then that will allow us to zoom in. We can also use the Control, Alt and Shift. We hold down Alt. If we hold down Control and Alt, we'll be able to zoom this out to 2845 if we can get this to come out correctly. We can just use the sizing option, and we'll just dial it down a notch to 2845. Do have to experiment a little bit to see how it goes, because some higher DPI scans will result in a larger disc. If we then just move our position down, move it to the left, and then of course move it to the right. Just need to bring this down just a tad, which we can then now do using the arrow keys. So it does seem there's a little bit of a bugging issue going on with the selection side. I'm not sure why, but again, if you just keep Gimp up to date and also do consider supporting the project, then any minor bugs and issues will get fixed. So it's going to be a little bit of a case of having to eyeball it as much as you can. So you can see we're just a tad out. If we just move to the left a little bit, sometimes unfortunately have to sometimes click to move the buttons a little bit, but that's absolutely fine. If we then have a look down at the bottom, you can now see we're pretty far out. Just move down a tad. So when we see this shine here, you can see how we've got a very dark part and then it goes to very light, and that again is just very slightly the shadow of the disc itself. And this is why I say this is very much an eyeballing task. Generally you want to have a look at the corners itself, and yeah, you have to look at the corners of where the crop comes to, and then if we have a look at the top, we can go down by a tad, a little bit more. You can spend pretty much quite a while doing this to try and get it right. We've got this very, very dark bit here. That's just the edge of, I believe, probably the edge of the disc. And we've got the shadow here caused by the side. Yeah, and then you see how it disappears straight in. So this would be your disc edge here. But this pretty much is as close as I'm going to get. So if we go to Edit and then go to Copy, and then we'll go File, Create, and then from Clipboard, you can now see we've got our disc selected, and it's in a nice perfect size of 2845 pixels in height and 2845 pixels in width. So the reason also for saving in PNG is simply because we're not going to get any white background. There'll be no background, sorry, at all. Now the final bit to touch up is the very center bit, the Alt option. We can then get this to around about 3. We try 350. Move this up to the top. Just so that you can now see. Still need quite a bit of way to go. Just to try and take out this sort of shadow that we've got because of the thickness of the disc. If we just go edit and then can go cut, that will now cut out the part in the middle. Okay, the next part we will then want to do is to try and get this disc actually showing the correct orientation, because I could export it as it is now, but really it's not that easy to read. Okay, so to actually get the disc actually straight, generally we want to have a look at how the disc is orientated. So this is a bit of an interesting disc because we've got the Adam, the TriStar, our name let noise inside, let out the noise inside, and the text itself is this way up, but we have got the record label here at the bottom and the text is going straight up. So again, you'll need to inspect your disc physically and use it as a reference when trying to orientate the disc correctly. So for this case, because when we look at the cover art, it's basically the same picture itself, we'll be putting the disc facing this way, not this way. So what we'll now do is rotate the disc itself. Now generally, for getting this to work and line the text up, I like to have the show the guide. So we just go view and then show grid, and that will bring up this grid line. This will not sharpen the exported image at all. This is just so I can get the text correctly straightened. So next up, to get the rotate, we just need to use the hold down Shift and R, and that will bring up our rotate option. So what I'm going to do is rotate, and because of now having it cropped, you can see now it rotates almost like a CD in a CD player. Now you'll notice in the middle that we've got a little, it's not perfect in the middle, and we can see a little bit of the edge sort of wobbling a little bit, and that's perfectly normal. Even in a CD player, a CD is never 100% perfect. When you watch a disc being played in a CD player, you'll sometimes see the label still moving. So it's absolutely perfectly fine. So what we're going to do is just rotate this to get this as centered as possible. I may have to turn the grid option off, just because of the fact of trying to get this as centered as possible. But we can always use the guides, bring down a guide, and then we can just line up. You're essentially looking for the most straightest parts that you can see. So for example, we've got this like funny looking logo here, and we're trying to line this up as best we can. Go to about here. We're not going to always get this 100% perfect, but we'll try our best. And we've got our bit we can line up along our text going up the side here as well. So it's never going to be 100% perfect, but it's about as getting as close as we can. Once we're happy, we can just click rotate, and then that will just realign the image in the perfect way possible. So that looks pretty damn well good. I'm happy with that. So now we'll just simply export. We can do this by going just like before, go file and then export as, and we'll just call this disk front and click export. And then we'll get this export as option, which we then again just click export and then it's save. So now we've got our current scans. We've got the front here showing up. Go for the back, and then we've got the front cover. We've got disc front, And then we've got the inside, the spine, and the tray. Now the next part due will be the back of the disc. Okay, so just like before, we'll just take our disc, and this time we're going to try and place it as flat down. Try and get this as straight as we can. And then with that now placed down, we'll then just hit scan just like before. So with the disc now loaded, we just need to go to File and Create, Scan around camera, like we've always done. Select, Custom Settings, and then we'll just make sure this is set, try 1200, just make sure it's always set the default. Click on Preview and wait for the scan to load. The disc now loaded, we'll just increase the scanning area field by a bit just to make sure we've got the full disc, and then just hit scan and we'll let it scan and transfer across. Okay, so the disc now loaded, we can now start using the ellipse tool. We can select and start cutting out the disc itself. What we'll need to do is ensure we have replaced current selection for the ellipse tool, fixed aspect ratio as 1:1, expand from center. Size wise, we'll just set as before as 28:45, 28:45. We'll expand out to 28:45. That now said, we can then start moving this into position. So just like before, we'll just zoom in. We'll try and move the bit across a tad, so it's a bit more right and left. Just check the top, which is looking very good. Move to the tad up to there. And just like before, we're having to look and eyeball. So that now looks very, very good. And we'll then go to, just like before, go to Edit and then Copy. And then afterwards go File, Create, and then from Clipboard, you'll see now it's pasted the whole disc. The next part to then do is do the center middle bit. We'll just set the size as 350, and then we'll just move the part down, and certainly needs to be very much to the right. And if we zoom in, we can then refine the selection about there, and we'll just hit, we can then just go Edit and then go Cut, and I'll now cut out the middle bit. So to rotate and get the disc perfectly straight, we're going to use the front. So as like before, I was mentioning about the disc title being this way up. So if I rotate it directly, you can see essentially we've got the logo just here on the right hand side, or at least it's a bit of text actually, and that will show sort of like this really the orientation where it be. So once we get this about right, then it'll be straight. If we look on the side here, we've got a little bit of a barcode as well, and then of course I've got this code here as well. So this is the disc straight as much as possible that way around. So I'm going to be using this, the front cover bits, the physical disc itself, and just looking at that to then work out how to orientate the back of the disc. So now it's time to rotate the disc. We'll just use our rotate tool, and now just like before when we turn the disc, you can see it's sort of pretty much as close as we're going to get. So I look at the sort of disc at the side, and using the text at the bottom, we can see we've got this barcode along the side. So I know it's going to be in the top left corner, and then this text has to go along the bottom. So we're never really going to get this 100% correct, but we've got a few bits that we can use as a way to try and orientate the disc as close as we can. So for example, we've got this tiny little bit here, which is kind of like, looks like it's more on a sort of a 10 o'clock position, or just after. So we've got a 9 o'clock position here, and we've got 12, and then 3 and 6 here, a bit like the face of a clock. So if that then said, we then just click the rotate, and that will orientate the disc Using the zoom tool, we can zoom in and see we've still got the code, it's still readable. Okay, so to then export the disk, we'll just go File and then Export As, and we'll then export it as disk back. Then just click Export. Then we'll get the export image as PNG option. Just click Export again and let it run. So now we have all our scans. We have the back cover. We've then got the cover itself, the disc back, disc front, the inside, the spine, and then finally the tray. These are named in the appropriate order because of the file names. The next final part to do is actually get them up onto Musicbrainz itself. With the scans now complete, it's time to actually share the cover art onto Musicbrainz. You will need a Musicbrainz account, which is free and easy to create. What we then need to do is just browse to the release and then simply click the cover art option. So in this case, we've only just got one cover art, and we click add cover art. We've got the option to drag and drop, which is something you can quite easily do. I'm going to be dragging and dropping the images here. So we just click on and then select all our images, drag down to our web browser, and then just drop them on the thing. You'll notice that they start to then build up, and we can then rearrange the order. So typically I'll put the cover at the top and then move the back all the way down to the very bottom, as it's the back of the packaging, it's the very last thing. And then we'll have tray, have spine we can probably keep in the middle, probably move that down actually. And then really this part's personal preference. We then need to tick the type of file. So for example, the cover we need to tick as front, and we've got our spine, which we tick as spine. Some of these you're going to have to go for best guess. So there's no category for inside, but I'll leave it as is. For disc, we want to tick the medium, that's tray. Obviously we need to just tick as tray. And finally for back, we'll just tick as back. This other one, this cover art here, we can delete and get rid of because of the fact that it was very likely taken from the digital release, just to put something there. And then here you can add an optional comment, however you want, like say for example, own scans for example. And then once it's done, you just need to click edit. Be very patient, as this can take quite a while to upload PNGs, and don't move them at all, because otherwise you'll get error messages of that it couldn't be found. So just leave that to run. Finally, you can now see we've got all the cover arts added. This original one here, which was taken from the streaming version, we can actually remove because it's not an actual scan. So here, to remove the image, the original one that we had here that was taken from, likely from the streaming version, you need to put an edit note in. We'll just say originally from streaming version or something, whatever you want to put, and then just click enter edit. And then this will take at least a week to be updated, and for us to actually be removed, for example. That's always standard across any major edits on Musicbrainz. Anything like uploading cover arts and the scans, they'd be done instantly. However, things like removing or anything that could be seen as being destructive will be open for a week. And then after that, if nobody votes or does anything, then the edit is carried out. So now we've got our scans, and we've also got our music. What I then usually do is move the scans inside our tracks. When we open them up, we've got our tracks themselves for the log, accurate and cube files. Next part really to do is this file here was created with exact audio copy. We don't need that because we've got a better scan. If we go into the scans folder, I then just move the cover that we had and then just put it into the root. A lot of this is personal preference, but this is now all tagged and is now ready to go into your archives. Got these tagged using Musicbrainz Picard, which is a different system, and that's for actually sorting out the music files. So I hope this guide has given you some advice and been of some help for scanning and hopefully archiving your CDs for future generations to appreciate and cherish. And we'll see you in the next video.
Thank you for watching this video. I really hope this guide helps you. Please consider donating to any of the projects that have been featured in the video, as it also helps them build more tools and improves them for future generations. You can follow me on social media such as Mazden. I've links below in the description, and also consider subscribing and also hitting the like video. Till next time, take care.